Now we are honored to kick off the day today with Saul Kay's presentation. If you joined us yesterday, you know that we were unable to play his presentation yesterday, but today we have it ready for you. Saul Kay is the CEO and founder of ICANN, Israel Cannabis. Saul is a true leader in the global cannabis ecosystem. He is an industry advisor to the Medical Cannabis Caucus of the Knesset, as well as an advisor to the Ministries of Economy and Health in Israel. Saul is a licensed pharmacist and a successful entrepreneur with both retail and e-commerce experience. He has founded multiple companies spanning 6 countries across the US, Europe, Israel, and Australia. We will join him today as he talks about cannabis in Israel and gives you a better understanding of what is happening around the world in cannabis and the possibilities that are out there.
Hi, I'd like to thank the organizers of the MIBCC conference for allowing me to participate. And I wanted to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about what I'm most asked about, which is what is cannabis in Israel? Why is it different? What's special? So first of all, I'm Saul Kay. I'm a pharmacist. I founded a company called ICANN, Israel Cannabis, 5 years ago, with the goal of accelerating cannabis around the world. We've been fighting a stigmatized battle over time with cannabis. In that 5 years ago when I started in the cannabis space, there wasn't very much talk about what's going on now. Obviously, with Canada legalizing, we brought cannabis to the mainstream. But Israel is very, very well known for its cannabis ecosystem, and that's what I'm going to speak about mostly. As you know, cannabis is a hyper-growth industry across the world. It's the fastest growing industry in the world, in fact, and something that allows everybody to participate. Whether you want to grow cannabis, extract it, open a retail store, provide services to the industry, or as many people say, provide the picks and shovels for the industry, everyone can participate, and that's a unique thing that's going on around the cannabis space, and something that's absolutely fascinating to watch as we bring brands in new categories to market in a digital age like never before, in a category that a few years ago was completely illegal, stigmatized. You would not have a conversation around the Thanksgiving table about cannabis, whereas today you do. And that's driving everything towards a legitimate industry that's backed by many, many years of research. And finally, countries are opening up around the world with some form of legalization or medicalization, where they're going to open a medical cannabis program with some forms of standards. And that's happening in your own backyard in Mexico. But we're still waiting for the regulations to come out and see exactly how it all shakes out. But I'm very much looking forward to the fact that you will go recreational, probably at the same time as you do medical, which is fantastic. And I was down in Mexico a year ago. I'm very interested to see how it's developed over time. But Israel is where we're operating on, and ICANN operates 4 arms. We create the ecosystem by doing events. We do meetups, we do our Canatech events, and we do small events called ICANN Connect around the world. We serve companies that come into our ecosystem with a basket of services, whether it's creating a business plan, finding new funding, building out your grow or your manufacturing facility, gap analysis. We've been in the industry long enough, and we've served many, many customers, happy customers across the whole world. At the same time, we incubate companies that come into our ecosystem, companies that we see have great potential, fantastic teams, and intellectual property behind them. We actively incubate and we get them to ready to market, and then we invest in them through our investment funds. And we've done quite a few deals in the last year, and we're looking at a global platform as we roll out Canatech around the world that allows us to put a footprint down wherever we go. So Canatech is our premier event series. You may have heard of it. It's gotten some press and recognition around the world, thank God. And we do it because it's the best way to destigmatize on a global scale and allows us to take the message to the emerging markets. So we've done Canatech in Latin America, in Panama. We've done it in Hong Kong, in Asia, Australia, London, Davos, Israel, obviously a few times. And the reason we do it is because we can change things on a global scale through this platform. And we bring together researchers and scientists, agronomists, financiers, bankers, commodity traders, all under one roof, which is unusual in the cannabis space, because when you go to a conference that's centered, say, around oncology, everyone there is an oncologist or a drug company dealing in oncology. With cannabis, you've got an ecosystem that crosses so many breadths. And we saw it particularly in Israel, where we have unbiased support from every party in our Knesset, in our parliament, that supports cannabis, which is quite unbelievable, because we've got ultra-Orthodox parties, and we got right-wing parties, and we have Arab parties, and we have left-wing parties. Everybody agrees on cannabis. So taking that ecosystem around the world through Canatech has given us great leverage in these emerging economies, where we can then support services, incubate new companies, and invest in great companies that we come across. At the same time, we recognize that it's hard for cannabis companies to raise capital. So we started a series called ICANN Connect, which connects Israeli startups to capital markets. We did our first event in New York, and it was very successful. Companies raised capital, and we've shown that we are able to bring an ambiance to a summit and put the right people in the room to get deals done. And that's happened again and again. Some of our clients in our global ecosystem include some of the large companies operating in cannabis, all the way down to small companies looking to learn how to operate in cannabis. We have 20 people at ICANN who work dedicated to the industry, to helping support our clients and our incubabies, as we call them. And we're very proud of our global platform that we've built. The type of services that we're able to give through our platform are things like market guidance, financing assistance, product development, business development. We have a great pool of advisors and mentors from across the world that can help you in regulation, because every country that I've operated in, the regulations are slightly different. And we have to be able to be nimble in order to be a we call them MSOs in America, multi-state operators. We're a global operator. And it's very complicated because of the geofencing around cannabis and the fact that you're not allowed to move material from one state to another inside the United States, or from one country to another outside, makes it very complicated to work in cannabis. It also makes it very expensive to work in cannabis. So those are some of the barriers to entry. We take a preferred equity stake in the companies that we incubate. We take royalties and licenses if we upscale you, if we do offtake agreements that allow us to help you expand into a global platform. And we've got a seasoned team of professionals that have been doing investments in other spaces come into cannabis to help us scale this up on a global level. So in our current portfolio, we have developed companies like Yom Chai. Yom Chai is a company doing clinical research in ADD, attention deficit disorder, something that we know anecdotally cannabis works for. And we're doing a clinical trial in order to prove that it also works via evidence-based medicine. We have a company called ICANN-C that is developing a range of ocular products, cannabis delivered through the eyes. We believe there are many receptors in the eye that are going to be susceptible to cannabinoids. We can treat inner eye disease and outer eye disease through the platform that we've developed. And we've done that in conjunction with the Technion, like the MIT in Israel, who developed our novel nano delivery capsulation that we put our cannabinoids alongside it in order to deliver our drugs right into the eye. We have another company, Reagenics, that we're going after creating cannabinoids in a sustainable, closed environment. We've got a method that we developed in lavender, and we're applying that previous art into cannabis, where we take cannabis cells and we cause them to multiply in this sterile environment, creating us cannabis oil without the need of growing the cannabis plant. We're very excited about this technology. We're actually doing it in a lab in Poland, and it's our first project that we're doing outside of Israel from the perspective of incubating a company. We have a couple of other companies that have graduated, that have seen success from the platform, companies that are involved in extraction like CanRx, and a commodities trading platform called Semtrex, which is developing a platform which will allow the sale of cannabis, whether it's the genes, the genetics, the seeds, the clones, the biomass, or finished products on a global scale. And Semtrex has anchored their platform right now with 44 countries participating. It has bulk orders and single orders active on the platform. It's something you should check out. As cannabis evolves, we have to build the tools that will enable cannabis trade to happen on a global scale. And we're very proud of Semtrex, which has graduated from the incubator, gone on to raise some capital, and is very successful at implementing this on a global scale. ICANN invests into strategic companies commercializing IP globally through our partner network. We've invested in infrastructure in Africa, in Israel, in Canada, and extraction in the United States. Our partners in the companies that we've invested in are very active inside the Canatech platform and enjoy being exposed to the global audience that we have through Canatech. And it's a synergistic relationship. They both enjoy capital, but we bring a lot more than capital to the table. Our thesis is to continue to invest into infrastructure that allows us to globally scale products, so that when our eye product is ready for the market, we have active partners in Africa, Latin America, Canada, USA, and Australia ready to take those products to patients who need them in those locations. So we will continue investing along that thesis. But why Israel? Israel is a very, very small country. It fits into the state of New Jersey. It's very, very small with a huge amount of potential. And that potential comes from the fact that we've had a regulated cannabis system in Israel since the early 90s. Cannabis research has been done since the 60s. Obviously, you've heard of Professor Meshulam at the Hebrew University, the Weizmann Institute at the time, where he was allowed to research cannabis, where everywhere else in the world you're not allowed to research cannabis. Since then, there was a patient that applied to the High Court to gain access to a medicine when all other medicines had failed her, and the High Court in Israel allowed her to grow her own cannabis, and that was patient number one. And then many more patients sued the High Court in order to get cannabis, and it ended up that they had to regulate it, and they ended up with regulating 8 growers of cannabis in Israel who used to, at the very beginning of the system, deliver cannabis for free to the patients. And only since 2006 have they been allowed to charge patients for cannabis medicine and scale up their businesses. Many of them are looking to go public, are growing, not only in Israel, but have set up multiple platforms across the world in order to grow cannabis. But it all started here because we had a positive regulatory environment that allowed us access to a plant if you're a researcher, and access to a plant if you're a really sick patient and you didn't have any other choice. It then hit a critical mass, and they started to regulate cannabis according to the new regulation. And the new regulation came into effect in January. It's been difficult from an industry perspective and very difficult from a patient perspective. There are a lot of bottlenecks when you regulate a new system, and you have to figure these things out. These are teething problems in something that ultimately will be a very robust system in Israel, with possibly 200 to 300,000 patients in the next coming year and a half. but it's taken time for Israel to get there. So what Israel did in that space is they allowed the regulation to exist in 5 different spaces. Nursery of cannabis, which allows you to breed cannabis, cultivation of cannabis, which allows you to take small plants to big plants, production of cannabis to products, taking biomass and creating a product, whether the product is a 10-gram package of flour or a pre-roll or oils or vapes or edibles, that all has to be done under a GMP license. And then dispensary, which is pharmacies in Israel. So they went through a process of training doctors in cannabis medicine. When I went through pharmacy school now 5 years ago, there was no cannabis medicine taught to me. We were only taught 2 days of opioid medicine. So that is something that's shifted here in Israel. They're allowing for doctors to be certified in cannabis medicine, pharmacists to be certified. I did the course, I got certified. My pharmacy here in Israel will be a dispensing pharmacy for cannabis. And again, we're now waiting for the licensing to come behind it. You also have to remember, we went to elections in Israel in April. We did not form a government. We now went to elections a couple of days ago. It doesn't look good that they're going to form a government. So this is all operating in a bubble at the moment, but we're still sort of making 2 steps forward, 1 step back at the same time. So Israel currently has 9 approved suppliers of medical cannabis, hundreds more in the pipeline ready to be approved. In order to get approved, you need a background check, obviously, to make sure that you have no history that would offend, I guess, the regulator. And then you have to submit your plans, and then once your plans are approved, you have to build out your facility. You get another set of approval, and then you're allowed to start beginning growing, and you can grow in your first cycle 180 plants. A second cycle of 180 plants has to be done, and then you're open to scale up the business to whatever size license you got. So there's going to be a lag between what's happening now to support the 50,000 patients that we have and what's coming, which is by, I guess, the end of next year, a fully robust vertical value chain here in Israel, with export expected by the end of this year, with countries desperate to import cannabis as they sort out their own regulations. And we've seen that in Australia and in Germany, which we expect to be the largest import markets for the moment. But right now in Israel, we're not supporting our current patient base with enough cannabis as medicine, and we need to do better there as well. We work in Israel with all the universities, Tel Aviv University, Ben Gurion, the Technion. They are active in cannabis. At the Bar Ilan University, there is an active grow. At the Hebrew University Agricultural School, there is an active grow, all for the purposes of research. So not only can we access patients, we can give medicine to patients, we can do clinical trials, but we can do different types of trials at the university level on the plant here in Israel, which is quite exciting. Israel is known as the innovation nation. The reason it's known for that is that the government supports innovators in Israel in a unique way. The government puts up about $400 million a year in innovation funding. The way they do that is mostly through registered incubators, so government incubators, and there are 19 government incubators in Israel, that basically do the due diligence for the government, say they're going to invest capital into that innovative project, and then the government will match fund alongside. And so industry, government, and innovation work together with these incubators, accelerators, alongside all of the infrastructure of universities and education. So it's this unique thing that's happened in Israel. You also have a country that's very small. So I have MIT, Technion, an hour and a half away, and I have Professor Meshulam another half an hour away in Jerusalem. So we've got this hugely tight community, all looking at how do we innovate and how do we tap into some of their government funding in order to de-risk the early stage investments. If you look from an investment perspective at where Israel is, we're second in investment funding outside of Silicon Valley. We're the highest number of NASDAQ after the United States and China. We have the most scientists and engineers, the most PhDs per capita in the world, and the largest number of startups in the world. Remember, in a tiny little country. So when Israel started to turn on to cannabis, it was kind of natural that that innovation nation, that spark up nation is going to infuse itself into the cannabis industry. And it did. It did to the point where we're the second number of patents registered as a country in cannabis outside of China. In terms of capital confidence, how the industry views Israel, all the multinationals operate here in Israel, including Google, including Salesforce, SAP. They see Israel as a place where they can incubate companies, and that's exactly what they use it for. And then they scale that globally. When we're talking about innovation in Israel, we're talking about match funding to the tune of 85 to 15. So as an incubator, if I put in $150,000, the government theoretically can follow in with $850,000. That de-risks early stage investment in an incredible way. Because early stage is the hardest point to invest into a company. It's usually binary, meaning it's going to work or it's not going to work. If it doesn't work, I've lost my money. If it works, the company still has a long haul to get to where it needs to go to. It might have founder problems. It may not raise money. It might have to pivot. The regulations could change. So it's very hard for investors, especially institutional investors, to invest in early and seed stage companies. And this is what Israel comes in to de-risk that so that we can develop it. And we've seen that the success of that has driven companies like Waze and like Mobileye, who've both had multi-billion-dollar exits recently in Israel. And they were both Innovation Authority funded. Ecosystem includes everyone that's active around the world, not only the universities, but we work with a large fund in China. We work with a large fund here in Israel. We tap into young entrepreneurs through a Ramus for Young Entrepreneur program in Europe, where they send entrepreneurs out to our hub here in Israel to sit for 3 months to figure out if they've got a reasonable chance of creating a business around their idea. That's Israel in a nutshell, and ICANN on the back of it. I'd now like to invite Eli Bader, who is originally from Mexico. He's going to give a quick interview as well, and then we're going to be open up for questions from everyone, and I'll be online in order to take your questions and ask me anything around innovation. We've got some amazing IP behind us, and we can seriously help to accelerate you inside the global cannabis space. Eli, tell us about your experience as someone in the Israeli medical cannabis system.
With pleasure. Thank you, Sal. Mucho gusto a todos. Yo soy Eli Beda. Hace poco tiempo tuve la oportunidad de ayudar a alguien a recibir su licencia de consumo de cannabis medicinal. Fue un proceso muy difícil, muchas citas muy caras con doctores que después de como 8 meses la persona pudo recibir la licencia para el cannabis medicinal. Fue con la nueva regulación. Entonces tiene que ir a la farmacia para comprar el cannabis. Es el tercer mes que me han mandado a comprar el cannabis. El primer mes fui, llegué, compré, salí. El segundo mes no había en ninguna farmacia de todo Israel el tipo de cannabis que esa persona necesitaba. No recibimos flor.
Amén.
Llamábamos a como 15 o 20 todos los días. Este mes había no lo que esta persona necesita. Ellos reciben una ración de THC 10, CBD 10, es decir, 1 a 1. No han tenido. Esa persona recibió una vez THC 5, CBD 10, porque acá pueden bajar el nivel de THC, pero no lo pueden subir. pueden cambiar de flor a gotas, pero no pueden subir a nivel de THC. Y este mes todavía no hemos encontrado lo que necesitamos.
And from the whole process, from when you started to when you finally got a prescription and cannabis, how long was that?
A nosotros a la persona le tardó 9 meses con contactos, llegando a personas con influencias y es un caso de PTSD muy marcado. Entonces el proceso tenía que haber sido mucho más fácil.
How do you think that compares to what's going on in Mexico right now?
Bueno, sí podemos al final conseguir cannabis después de un proceso y sí podemos ir y pagar con tarjeta de crédito y sentir con una forma muy digna cuando recibimos la medicina. Yo como persona que va a recogerla no me han hecho sentirme mal, al contrario, me hablan, hacen preguntas de cómo está reaccionando el paciente, me ayudan a entender cómo ayudar al paciente. No tuve experiencia en México consiguiendo cannabis medicinal. Sé que pues, en esa época que yo estaba en México no existía un programa, pero antes de ser medicinal acá en Israel conseguíamos en el mercado negro y también en México conseguíamos en el mercado negro. Nunca ha faltado formas de conseguir cannabis, siempre ha faltado formas de conseguirlo con dignidad y no sentirse uno que está haciendo algo ilegal o malo.
And if you're willing to say, can you tell us how much cannabis costs you as a therapy per month?
La persona recibe 20 gramos y le cuesta 350 shekel, como $100 por los 20 gramos.
So we got somewhere to go on that as well.
También, sí. Sí, porque si son 40, supongo que es el doble. Si son gotas también, cada cosa es más y más.
What could you give as a message about Israel, about what Mexico could learn from Israel, maybe what Israel could learn from Mexico?
Mira, estando en Israel, estando en el mundo del cannabis, es impresionante ver cuánta tecnología hay, cuánta apertura hay, tanto a nivel gubernamental, que hay apoyo para la investigación, hay apoyo para los pacientes. Claro, siempre queremos más, pero acá en Israel sí hay y sí existe un programa. Creo que cada país puede aprender y México puede aprender de que sí hay forma de tener cannabis medicinal, de tener un control sobre el sistema. No ser tan estrictos porque yo veo que yo puedo ir a un doctor y en 15 minutos recibir un papelito que me puedo comprar opium, puedo comprar medicina mucho más fuerte. No creo que el cannabis debe de ser más difícil en ningún país que conseguir cualquier otra medicina de un doctor. Hemos visto en Israel con toda la información y toda la investigación que el estigma se puede romper. El cannabis es una medicina que ayuda realmente a mucha gente y puede llegar a ayudar a todos los pacientes en México también.
Thank you again to the organizers of the MIBCC. We'd look forward to seeing you at a Canatech soon. Our next one is in Cape Town. Thank you, Eli, for joining us, and muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias.